The Saints just made a trade for a big-bodied wide receiver at 6'5" from the Denver Broncos and wide receiver Devon Vele, the second-year wide receiver, who's now going to be adding his physicality and his size to a wide receiver room that desperately needs it, that is filled with a lot of shorter, speedier guys. Now Devon Vele is going to be the big-body 6'5" wide receiver in the Saints receiver room, and hopefully providing some help for the young quarterbacks on third downs and in the red zone, which is what the Saints offense has been missing for quite some time. We're going to be breaking down this trade. Is it a good, the compensation, everything like that in today's video. I'm Cash. You should take 5 seconds to like the video and subscribe. Help support the channel. We're trying to reach 15,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Currently at like 13.7, almost at 14,000. Appreciate the support. Appreciate everything. Let's keep this thing going into the regular season. And with all that being said, let's dive into the trade details of the Saints acquiring this big-bodied wide receiver. It was reported on Wednesday from Adam Schefter that the Saints are trading for a wide receiver in Devon Vele from the Denver Broncos. The details of the compensation and what the Saints are trading to the Denver Broncos include the Saints sending a 2026 fourth-round pick, so a fourth-round pick this year, and a 2027 7th-round pick next year. So the Saints sent 2 draft picks to the Denver Broncos in return for wide receiver Devon Vele. Before we dive into the wide receiver himself, let's talk about the compensation. Not a big fan of it. The Saints are obviously a rebuilding team. They need to keep as many draft picks as possible as they can, and trading away a 4th-round pick, not a big fan of it. Do not like it. Even people who cover the Broncos and see this guy as a really talented individual say that this was a really high price to pay for a wide receiver, or this specific wide receiver. Jeff Duncan gives some clarity right here that the Saints had competition for Devon Vele. They weren't the only team interested in him, which might explain why the Saints had to give up such a high price for the wide receiver they gave up. And the Saints haven't been good at drafting 4th-round players outside of this past draft, so maybe it isn't that big of a deal, but it just seems like a steep price to pay. Mickey Loomis always seems to get messed up in these trades and always seems to give up way too much for players who aren't worth as much, or he always seems to trade away players for value that should be higher. And Mickey Loomis, yet again, showing that he gave up a 7th-round pick and a 4th-round pick for a rebuilding team for a wide receiver who was a 7th-round pick and was Denver's number 4 wide receiver last season. I'll mention this though, the Saints could possibly be getting a 4th-round pick in return for a comp pick for Paulson Adebo. Jeff Nowak says right here that it is worth mentioning the Saints are projected. They're not guaranteed, but they are projected to get a 4th-round comp pick for Paulson Adebo next year's draft. That would be nice. But you know what also would be nice? Having 2 4th-round picks next year for a team that's rebuilding. The Saints had 2 4th-round picks this year. They got Danny Stutzman and Quincy Riley, 2 guys who have been really good so far throughout the preseason and camp. You may have just lost another player in the draft because you traded that 4th-round pick. Yeah, I understand it if that is the thinking behind it, but I'm not a big fan of the compensation Mickey Loomis just gave up to acquire Devon Vele. Looking back at some previous wide receiver trades over the years, shout out to Rocco for doing this. Deebo Samuel was a 5th-round pick in a trade. Mike Williams, 5th-round pick. Jerry Jeudy, a 5th and a 6th. Devontae Adams was a 3rd-round pick, and DeAndre Hopkins was a 5th. And the Saints traded a 4th-round pick and a 7th-round pick for a 27-year-old who had 500 yards receiving last season. Not a great look for Mickey Loomis, a guy who a lot of Saints fans are not a big fan of right now. Now let's dive into the wide receiver himself. So Devon Vele, the former Denver Broncos wide receiver, is 6'5", so the Saints finally have a big-bodied wide receiver. Devon Vele, though, is going into his 2nd season of the NFL. He was a 7th-round pick in 2024 for the Denver Broncos. But while he is going into year 2, he isn't necessarily a young player. Vele is turning 28 years old in December. He was born in the same year as Saquon Barkley. And Saquon Barkley is in year 8 or year 9. So this guy is pretty old for a 2nd-year player. And I just wanted to pull this up because I thought it was hilarious. Tyler Shuck throwing to Devon Vele, and you got Unc Jerry Rice and Unc Dan Marino and Randy Moss. Shuck's turning 26 or 27 this year. Vele's turning 28. Both of them on rookie contracts, the early portions of their rookie contracts. So I thought this was at least funny to get a good laugh out of it. In all seriousness though now, Vele does fit the mold of a big body guy that the team has been looking for what feels like 4 to 5 years. The Saints missed out on a few opportunities to draft and signed a few wide receivers during free agency over the past few years to get a big body guy. They really haven't had anyone in that role since Michael Thomas dealt with injuries and left. And prior to trading for Bailey, the Saints did not have a wide receiver over 6'2". They were one of 2 teams in the NFL to not have a wide receiver over 6'2". It was them and the Vikings. So the Saints get the 6'5" big body dude into the receiving room. Looking at his stats from his rookie year, Bailey played in 13 games. He missed 4 games due to a rib injury. He caught 41 catches on 55 targets for 475 yards. So he averaged about 11 yards per reception. That's actually pretty good for a 7th round pick rookie who was like the number 4 guy for that team. Caught 3 touchdowns, and of his 41 catches, 26 of them were first downs. That's pretty damn impressive in my opinion. Catching 63% of his passes, I think that's pretty solid as well. So for a 7th round pick, Bailey obviously exceeded expectations as the number 4 receiver for the Broncos. Nearly 500 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a lot of moving the chains, which is what the Saints desperately need at the wide receiver position. This Bronco fan said that Devon Bailey was a pleasant surprise for the Broncos last season as a 7th round pick, showed consistent hands over the middle, being a physical playmaker, effective and efficient at creating separation on these routes, and he had fantastic instincts to find open grass when plays broke down like that scramble drill. And this guy, a Broncos fan, said he was excited to see what he could do in his sophomore campaign for the Broncos, so the Saints might have gotten a decent player here to help out their offense. Former Saints head coach and current Broncos head coach Sean Payton had a lot of positive feedback and just input about this guy. Adam Schefter said there was times last season where Bailey reminded Broncos head coach Sean Payton of his former wide receiver with the Saints and Marcus Colston. That's a pretty big comparison and a pretty big comp right there. Bailey is now headed to the Saints, and if he can play anything like Colston, the Saints will obviously be thrilled, and he kind of does fit that mold of what is missing. Hopefully we do get that production out of the wide receiver. Broncos offensive coordinator Joe Lombardi, who used to work for the Saints, talked about Devon Bailey right here. It had some pretty positive things to say. Versatility, he's big, he's pretty quick for his size, good route runner, and he can block, and you can plug him in at a lot of different spots.
How important do you see kind of Devon Bailey being in this offense?
Yeah,
his role.
He's got a lot of versatility. He's big, he can run, he's a good route runner. And so, he's a guy that you can plug in a lot of spots. Smart, so he can play all the positions, and that's very helpful.
When Bailey was targeted last year from the Broncos quarterbacks, they had a 74.5 completion percentage rate. And on 3rd downs last year, Bailey had 11 first downs on 12 of his 3rd down catches moving the chain. So a big body guy who can run over the middle, help move the chains, which is what the Saints are missing and have been missing for the longest time. So he fits the mold. He has the right size. He can help out moving the chains on 3rd downs. His build is what the Saints have been missing. Sean Payton loves him. It's just the compensation that I'm not a big fan of, and the fact that he's going into year 2, but he's going to be 28 years old. Albert Breer, one of the NFL's best insiders, said Bailey has shown some real promise under former Saints head coach Sean Payton, and there's some real potential there for the Saints with this young, in terms of experienced player. So yeah, the potential and talent may be there. The right frame is there. I can't get over the Saints trading a 4th round pick for him. Now, if he turns out to be great for the Saints, that 4th round pick's not going to matter. But for a team that's rebuilding, they need to keep as many draft picks as possible. So that one definitely stings. And in terms of his ability to make contested catches, his situations, according to Pro Football Focus's charting, found that he was 9 of 15 on 50-50 balls, contested catches, turning it into 60-40 opportunities where he won more than he lost. So that's good to know with a 6'5" frame. Adds a skill set to an offense and to a wide receiver room that didn't have that skill set before. I do like the projection and the talent that he does have. And of course, we do have some footage of Bailey because that's what we got to do. We got to look at the guy who the Saints are traded for. He's at the bottom of the screen right here. Look at this route running, a little dig route. Finds a soft zone. Bo Nix connects with him. Nice play right there. This is his first career touchdown, and it came against the Kansas City Chiefs. But it was like a 6-yard thing. He's running a slant over the middle right here. Here he is in that contested over the middle of the field, and he makes the catch for the touchdown, his first one ever, coming against the Kansas City Chiefs. He also has some ability to get some yards after the catch. This was 4th and 2. Him and Bo Nix were able to connect on this nice little hookup right here. Bo Nix steps up into the pocket. Here's Bailey up there. Realizes it's a scramble opportunity, scramble drill with the quarterback, and finds the open spot behind the defenders for this quarterback to make a play. Bo Nix gets it to him, and Vele runs downfield, yards after the catch, breaks a tackle. Another guy coming in, almost breaks that one, and just comes up short of the end zone. And how about this? They posted these photos last year, but look at this catch. That's pretty crazy. And this one is Vele's other touchdown end of the season. This wasn't really him making a big contested catch or anything, but it's him showing his awareness in a end zone, red zone situation, looking for Adam Troutman, former Saints tight end, tipped again, and Vele with the awareness makes the catch, stays in bounds for the touchdown. This is an incredible awareness play from him. Definitely would like to see him do some of this with the Saints. So there is some projection there. There is talent there. There is the right size, but it's the compensation that is the big issue for me, as well as the age. Him being 28 years old in year 2, I think it's a little frustrating, especially considering that they just drafted a 26-year-old rookie. Now, it is worth noting that Vele has actually missed some time this offseason with the Broncos due to a knee injury. He missed mandatory minicamp and some of training camp. It was reported right here. He missed mandatory camp in spring and has had a lot of rest days at the Broncos training camp while dealing with the knee injury. He missed 4 games last year with a rib injury as well. And the Saints, a team that's been dealing with a lot of injuries, it's just like a red flag. It's like proceed with caution kind of thing. But they think he's going to be good, considering they gave up a 4th-round pick for him. He was in a deep wide receiver roster spot and depth chart with the Denver Broncos. How funny is it that Sean Payton finally decides to invest that wide receiver now with another team? And so I'm sure the asking price was pretty high for him, especially considering who traded for him in the New Orleans Saints. And Sean Payton just said right here, it's about maintenance and his knee issue, making sure it's fresh for the season, and come in season, it'll be easier to maintain and manage because they're stacking days as opposed to training camp. It's a little bit different. So as for Vele's role in the Saints offense, obviously he's going to be a guy who's going to be the number 3, number 4 guy to help move the chains with these young quarterbacks. A big body guy. The Saints have had some red zone struggles in practice and during these preseason games, so hopefully he can come in and provide some help. Some 50-50 balls turn into some 70-30 balls, throwing it to him at 6'5", make some plays, help out the quarterbacks, be a guy who can make plays over the middle, help move the chains on 3rd downs. He's going to be that kind of player. At least that's the expectation, and that's the role he should be fitting into. But we're just going to have to see whether or not that ends up working out the way it should. And now for the Saints' depth chart at wide receiver, I think it's pretty much set. Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed, obviously the top 2. Then you got Brandon Cooks, and it feels like Mason Tipton made the team, and now Devon Vele. That's 5 wide receivers. I don't know if they keep a 6th guy, but it feels like those 5 wide receivers are set to make the team, and that is going to be the Saints' at least minimum 5 receivers going onto the 53-man roster into week 1. I don't know if they keep a 6. We'll have to see and find out. Thanks for watching to the end of the video. Let me know what you make of the Saints trading for this big-bodied wide receiver down in the comments below. Do you like it? Do you like the player but not the compensation? That's kind of where I'm at. I don't know how to feel about it. I hope Vele ends up working out, though. Make sure to like the video and subscribe. Help support the channel. I'm Kaj. I'll catch you next time. Have a good one.